Okay, hi Tui, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So you're on a big book tour right now. How many interviews have you done today?
Oh gosh. I'm not sure.
You lost
Like
count?
15?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that's all right, no problem. Well, I'm happy to have you here. I see your book. It's Wings of Fire series, A Guide to the Dragon World. How many books are in the series currently?
Well, there are 15 books in the main series, and then there's two more that are novels that are sort of standalones, connected to the rest of the world. There's also, we're doing graphic novels of all the books, so there's six of those out. The seventh one is coming December 26th. And then the newest one is this guide to the world that's more of sort of an encyclopedia of like lots of little details and extra stories about the whole world of the dragons.
Before we get to your book, I wanted to hit a couple of things that I saw on your bio that sounded interesting. The first thing was about your name. Can you tell us the origins of your name?
Sure. It's so Tui is a kind of bird that only lives in New Zealand, and that's where my mom is from. So growing up, it's definitely unusual, but it made sense to us because we would go back to New Zealand and they would have lots of products with little Tuis on them, and I was like, oh, that's mine, that's me. So that's where it comes from, is New
Oh,
Zealand.
okay. Is it like the kiwi or no?
It is a bit like the kiwi in that it only lives in New Zealand, but the kiwi cannot fly and the tui can. And the tui is a very noisy bird. It's sort of a mimic bird, so it makes a lot of like really weird noises actually.
Oh, okay. Can they talk like parrots?
There is actually like a YouTube video you can look up that's like the talking tui, where someone has trained their tui to make noises that at least sound like talking. I don't think they're quite actually having conversations, but they can mimic like the people talking around them.
The other thing I saw that was interesting was that you were a 2-day contestant on Jeopardy.
Yes, yeah, it was a while ago, but it was the most fun. It's definitely like was something I'd always wanted to do since I was a little kid. So getting to finally be on it, and yeah, so I won 2 days and I lost on my third day. But it was just like such a fun experience. I was totally one of those kids that always wanted to raise my hand and answer all the questions. So like getting to be that person, like hitting the buzzer and being like, I actually know the answer, was very exciting.
Oh, I bet. So were you on when Alex Trebek was still the host?
Yes, I was. So I got to meet him. You don't get to meet him backstage, but you get to talk to him in that little part at the end where you're all standing around chatting to each other and the camera's swooping around and the music is playing. He was
Oh,
awesome.
that's great. So can I ask how much you won?
Yes, I think it was like 42,000
Oh, good.
over the 2 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So aside from Jeopardy and being named after a bird, you also have a great book series. When did this book series start, Wings of Fire?
Well, I started planning it out. I actually know I turned in an outline for the first five books, sort of the idea of it, in 2010, because it was right before my son was born. Luckily, he was about a week late, or I don't know if I would have finished the outline before he came. But so that's when I started like planning out the first five books of the series, and I think I finished the first book like in that next year. And the first book came out in 2012. So it's been going now for a little over 10 years.
Okay, now are all of the books graphic novels or no?
No, there are 15 books that are regular novels. They're sort of like, like 300-page novels. But each of those books has been turned into a graphic novel. So if you want to start with book one, but you're a younger kid that finds like the longer book intimidating, you could start with the graphic novel. But there's only six of them out so far. The seventh one is coming December 26th. So if you really want to know what happens next, you might have to switch over to the regular, the regular longer books.
Okay, give us a quick overview of the whole series. If for somebody who's never heard of it?
Sure. Well, for me, what got me started thinking about it is that I love dragons. I've always loved dragons. But most of the books I'd read were from the point of view of humans talking about the dragons. And what I really wanted was a series where the dragons were the ones telling the story and getting to have all the adventures. And I love sort of stories where you think you know somebody from the outside, but then you get to see them from the inside. And I was like, what if I just did that with like the whole idea of dragons, where we think of them as these like big scary monsters, but then when you get inside of them, like they're just like emotional teenagers like the rest of us. And so starting the whole series series, I imagined this world where there are all these different kinds of dragons, because I thought, I could have dragons that live in the Arctic part of the world and dragons that live under the ocean. And I designed all these different tribes based on the habitats that they lived in. And then I got into the characters of these 5 little dragons who are in a prophecy, and they're told that they have to save the world from this giant war that's happening between the dragon tribes. And each of the first 5 books focuses on a different one of those dragons, telling you sort of their character arc as they go from being either excited about being in the prophecy or reluctant about being in the prophecy, to like where they get to at the end of each of their stories, which is how they manage to save the world in their own way, basically.
Is this like Planet of the Apes for dragons?
You mean, is it our world but in the future?
Well, no, where Planet of the Apes is like where the apes are ruling over the humans. Is this more like that?
It is a little bit, because in the sense that it's a world where humans and dragons coexist, but the dragons are in charge. But they don't know how to communicate with each other. So the dragons think of the humans as these like annoying squirrels that like try to steal their treasure, and the humans think of the dragons as like giant flying sharks that could eat them at any moment. And so what they don't understand that each of them can like communicate in any other way. They don't think of them as being as advanced or like complicated as they are. And that's something that changes over the course of the book as like some humans and some dragons start to try and pay more attention to each other and actually like see the other species as like something that could be communicated with.
Okay, well that is sort of like the original Planet of the Apes, where the apes were the superior beings and the humans were the barbarians. And okay. All right, good.
Yeah.
So this one, there was something different about this book. Tell us what that is from the others in the series.
Sure. So the newest book in the series is called A Guide to the Dragon World. And the idea is that it's more of an encyclopedia. It's sort of the nonfiction version of this fictional world that gives you more details about each of the characters and each of the tribes in this world. There's a chapter for each kingdom that focuses in, like you get a little map with some of the more detailed geography. There's like what they eat, who their queen is, and then there's usually a story or something like a collection of letters that will tell you more about characters that you've met in the novels, or some part of their history that's been hinted at in the books but never fully explained. So it's basically like taking a list of questions that the fans had and finding ways to answer that in this sort of like field guide format. But it is also like, it's designed like a coffee table book. It's really beautiful. Our artist, Joy Eng, who's been doing the covers for the books since the first one, has added a whole bunch of art to this one. So as you're flipping through it, you can see all these beautiful illustrations that she's done. She did a new portrait of a queen for each of the different tribes, and then all this beautiful little spot art as well. It's a really pretty book to like touch and feel and just flip through. It's the designer as well. The designer who worked on it at Scholastic has done such an amazing job with it. I really think it's really pretty.
How many books do you anticipate are going to be in this? Are you just going to keep going?
I hope I'm going to keep going. The kids, I just went on a tour where I got to talk to a lot of fans, a lot of readers, and they seem to want more. And I know I have a lot of characters that I haven't gotten to yet and stories that I haven't told. So I would love to keep going as long as I still have ideas that I'm excited about and as long as the kids are still interested in it. So we'll see. So yeah, I don't have an end like number in mind.
Would you call these children's books?
Yeah, I think so. In the sense that like the characters are young, they're definitely like children inside the world of the dragons, and they are the ones, it has that feeling that a lot of children's books have of like the kids have to save the day, right? I definitely have a range of ages that read it. Like the people who show up at my events, there's kids as young as like 7 who are reading the graphic novels, all the way up to young adults in their 20s who've been reading them since the books first came out. And I love them that they keep coming back and like are sticking with the series just to find out what happens, and are writing their own stories about the dragons as well. That's so my hope is that it's appealing to everybody, but my first audience is definitely young readers who I feel like are the ones that are the most full of hope and potential, and I want them to feel like, yes, I could be in this world. I could totally save the world if I wanted to.
Do you have any interest in shopping this series to like an animated series or film, something like that?
Yeah, we've talked about it. There's a possibility that we're in conversation with right now that I'm not allowed to say much more about, but hopefully within the next year, maybe we'll have some news about, because I think that would be really cool to see it as a TV show and to get to see how other artists would interpret it and take up the stories that I feel are sometimes there's a lot of internal feelings of these dragons, but use all the visuals that I have in my head and make it into this big, exciting world. I would love to see that. So fingers crossed, maybe one day.
I guess the last question is this is out, it's been released, or did you say later this month?
This one is out. The Guide to the Dragon World is out right now. You can find it in your local bookstore, hopefully. And then the one that's coming out at the end of this month is the next graphic novel. That's book 7 in the graphic novel series.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right, Tui. Well, we do have to kind of wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on this show. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure. My website is tuibooks.com. It's tuibooks.com. Or I'm also on Instagram, where I like to post art that kids brought to the events of all their different dragon drawings. It's really, they're so amazing. It's really fun. I think, that's probably the places you can find me.
Okay. Is Instagram your sort of main go-to social media? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time on social media because it's very distracting from actually getting any writing done. But that's where I go when I do have something to post. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you. Best of luck with your book tour and with your books.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.